are the guardians of this sacred land.
Before men built courts or wrote laws, justice already had a throne, guarded not by kings, but by gods. These gods did not emerge from scrolls or constitutions. They were born with the world, forged in the same breath that shaped the rivers and the skies. They stood not behind marble benches, but within storms, within fire, within silence. And in the cradle of human civilization, Africa, they watched, they judged, they balanced. Justice in this ancient world was not something enforced, it was something lived. It was not vengeance, it was not fear, it was balance, harmony, a divine rhythm that held creation together like the beating of a sacred drum. In the eyes of the ancients, to disturb justice was not simply to commit a crime. It was to disrupt the natural order, to twist the threads of the universe. Every lie unbalanced the air, every broken oath cracked the ground, every act of cruelty echoed not just through people, but through spirit, land, and sky. These gods did not judge with gavels or robes, they judged through the language of nature. A flash of lightning was not merely weather, it was a verdict. A sudden illness could be more than a symptom, it could be a sentence. The gods of justice worked with feathers, with storms, with iron, with silence. One would weigh your heart, another would strike your roof, one would visit your dreams, another would remember your footsteps in the earth. Each of them understood something no human court could, that justice begins not in punishment, but in truth. To the ancestors, the truth was not subjective. It had weight, it had shape, it could be seen, measured, and heard. A just life was not one that avoided crime, it was one that honored the balance. It was not enough to avoid wrongdoing, one had to live in alignment with the ancestors, with the gods, with the land, with one's own spirit. Injustice wasn't just wrong, it was dangerous. It invited imbalance, and imbalance invited correction, not by men, but by forces far older than civilization. In Africa, divine justice was not distant. It was intimate. It was immediate. The gods were not abstract, they were present, in every oath sworn under a tree, in every burial conducted without ritual, in every child who spoke truth too early, in every elder who withheld wisdom. Justice flowed through the veins of community. It was not a system, it was a soul. And when justice was broken, the gods did not need to be summoned. They were already watching, already remembering. Some would strike, some would wait. Some would test you, not with judgment, but with fire, silence, or time. Their law was not written. It was breathed into the world. These are not myths. These are mirrors. Each of these deities carried not just the power to punish, but the duty to restore. They were not agents of fear, but guardians of order. They existed not to destroy, but to preserve the sacred bond between humanity and truth.
These are the 7 African gods of justice.
Some weighed hearts, some hurled thunder, some hunted lies, some simply remembered. But all of them ruled before human law, and some say they still do. Before the world wrote codes of law, Africa lived by conscience, and that conscience was divine. In the ancient land of Kemet, justice was not a creation of men. It was a force older than writing, older than war, older than kings. That force had a name, Ma'at. She was not just a goddess, she was the principle of truth, balance, order, and morality itself. To speak of Ma'at was to speak of the way the universe remained in harmony, how stars stayed on course, how the Nile knew when to rise, and how the soul knew what was right. Ma'at did not punish, she measured, and her scale did not tip for emotion or favor or fear. At the end of life, each soul stood before her cosmic balance. On one side, the heart, the seat of memory and motive. On the other, her feather, light and perfect, the symbol of eternal truth. If your heart was heavy with lies, cruelty, and imbalance, then it could not rise. It sank, and the soul was devoured by Amit, the devourer, part lion, part crocodile, part hippopotamus. There was no hell, no torture, just an end, a final silence. But if your heart was light, clean, balanced, you passed on into peace, into the eternal presence of the ancestors. Her domain extended beyond the individual. Ma'at governed the land, the sky, and the actions of kings. A pharaoh did not rule by force alone. He ruled by how well he upheld Ma'at. If famine came, if chaos spread, it was not only a crisis, it was a sign that Ma'at had been broken, that the balance had been violated. Law was not secular in Kemet, it was spiritual, cosmic. To break Ma'at was to wound the world. To live by Ma'at was to live in rhythm, in speech, in action, in heart. It meant truth in your dealings, compassion in your strength, humility in your leadership. It meant feeding the hungry, caring for the vulnerable, honoring the old, guiding the young. It was not about purity, but balance, not perfection, but honesty. The people of Kemet understood that the world could not stand without Ma'at, just as a drum cannot sing without tension. Each morning, the faithful would rise and speak the 42 laws of Ma'at, not as laws to memorize, but as a personal covenant. I have not lied. I have not stolen. I have not slain the innocent. I have not polluted the waters. I have not closed my ears to truth. These were not boasts, they were goals, aspirations, a daily reminder that justice began not in courts, but in conscience. Even now, the echoes of Ma'at live on. The symbol of the scale, seen in courthouses around the world, began not in Greece or Rome, but in Kemet. The idea of weighing truth, of balancing one's actions, comes directly from her feather. She is not gone. She is hidden, waiting beneath every call for fairness, every plea for truth, every cry that says, "This is not right."
Ma'at make us that justice is not about who wins. It's about what is true. Not about punishment, but restoration. She did not crush the wicked. She simply showed them their weight. And in doing so, she taught the world that real justice cannot be forced. It must be lived. Ma'at is not just a story. She is a standard. And she still weighs the heart. Among the Yoruba people, thunder was not just noise from the clouds. It was judgment in motion, a sentence handed down from the sky. And when the lightning cracked open the heavens and fire streaked across the earth, it was understood Shango had spoken. His voice was not carried in words, but in storms. He was not a god of silence or subtlety. He was a god of force, of spectacle, of undeniable truth. Shango was once a mortal king, proud, fierce, charismatic. His rule was bold, and his spirit burned too brightly to be confined by death. When he crossed over, he did not disappear. He ascended, becoming an Orisha, one of the most revered in the Yoruba pantheon. He took with him his thunder, his fire, his fury, and his sense of justice. His arrival was never quiet. He came with storms, with bolts that split trees, with winds that made lyres tremble.
Do not forget who your king is.
He did not target the weak, he confronted the powerful. Shango's justice was a direct answer to oppression. He did not wait for courts or councils. He acted. When rulers became tyrants, when leaders abused their power, Shango's bolts would fall like divine warnings. His fire cleansed the land. His thunder silenced corruption. And his double-headed axe, the sacred symbol he carried, became a reminder that truth cuts in both directions, toward those who speak it and toward those who betray it. Through Shango, justice became unforgettable. It was no longer an abstract idea or quiet expectation. It was visceral, emotional. It crashed into the lives of the unjust and left nothing untouched. People did not merely believe in his power, they witnessed it. When a corrupt chief fell ill after a storm, or a liar was struck while mocking the truth, the message was clear. Justice had ears, and those ears belonged to Shango. In times of conflict or oath-taking, people would offer prayers and gifts under the open sky, invoking Shango to bear witness. To lie under his name was to risk your life. This was no mere ritual. It was a thunder oath, a sacred contract sealed with the elements. If you broke it, you didn't answer to man, you answered to the storm. But Shango was not a god of cruelty. His fire was fierce, but it was cleansing. He was passionate, but not reckless. His justice served the restoration of balance, not the thrill of vengeance. Those who lived with honor had nothing to fear. In fact, they called on Shango to defend them, to speak on their behalf, to burn away the lies that threatened their peace. He was not just a punisher, he was a protector. To this day, his name carries weight. His symbol, the double-headed axe, still stands in shrines and temples, a sign that justice must cut through all things, even the self. His presence is invoked in drum rhythms, in chants, in stories passed down from elder to child. Shango reminds us that justice must be heard, must be seen, must be felt. It is not hidden. It arrives like thunder, undeniable and unforgettable. In the worldview of the Igbo people, words were never just sounds. They were spirit. To speak was to summon. Every promise made, every oath sworn, carried weight beyond the human world. Words could heal, curse, bind, or break, and to misuse them was not just dishonor, it was danger. Because above all oaths, above all voices, there watched a force that remembered everything said. Amadioha. Amadioha is the god of thunder and lightning, but more than that, he is the Sky Father, the divine enforcer of moral law. He does not wait in temples or behind altars. His court is the sky itself, his witnesses the clouds, and his verdicts are lightning bolts. To the Igbo, when justice fails among men, Amadioha delivers his own, and when he speaks, it is never in whispers. His justice is swift and unrelenting, especially toward liars, tyrants, and the deceitful. A corrupt man might deceive his neighbors, cheat his family, and escape the judgment of elders, but he could never escape the sky. Amadioha's power was not confined to punishment after death. It struck in this world, in sickness, in accidents, in thunder that arrived without rain. The guilty could feel his breath in the wind before the storm came. Swearing falsely under Amadioha's gaze was considered one of the gravest spiritual violations. In serious disputes, the Igbo would gather beneath the open sky with kola nuts and ancestral witnesses. There they would speak their truth, not in secret, but in full view of the heavens. "Let the sky judge me," they would say. "Let Amadioha strike me down if I lie." These were not metaphors. They were contracts, spiritual bonds that risked one's life on the truth of one's words. The white ram, sacred to Amadioha, was often used in rituals of appeasement and atonement. If someone feared that they had offended the god, whether through broken oaths or unjust acts, they would offer a white ram in sacrifice, pleading for forgiveness. But even then, it was not guaranteed. Because Amadioha did not judge by what was said in ritual. He judged by what was said in the heart. He was not cruel, but he was absolute. Amadioha did not punish out of wrath, but out of necessity. He maintained the moral spine of society, the invisible contract that held truth as sacred. In a world where words could build or destroy, he ensured that language remained holy, that to speak falsely was to gamble with the sky. And yet for those who walked in truth, who lived with honor, Amadioha was not a terror, he was protection, justice, the one who ensured that even when men failed, the gods would not. To call on him was to invoke the last court, the one that could not be bribed, misled, or ignored. In a time when justice is often buried beneath power and delay, Amadioha reminds us that truth needs no courtroom to speak. It only needs a sky and a God who remembers.
In the pantheon of the Yoruba, Ogun is often introduced as the god of war. But to limit him to the battlefield is to misunderstand the soul of justice he carries. Ogun is the god of iron, not only the weapon, but the tool. He is the pathmaker, the one who clears the forest, who carves a way through what is tangled, unclear, or corrupt. Where others debate justice, Ogun acts it. Where others speak, he cuts, not to destroy, but to reveal. Ogun is justice through labor. His hands are not clean because he avoids struggle. They are stained with the work of building order from chaos. He is the blacksmith at the forge, shaping truth from molten metal. The soldier on the front lines, defending what must not fall.
the builder, the digger, the honest worker, whose every blow of the hammer is a prayer. He respects no pretense, no pomp, no empty words. If your hands are idle while your mouth is full of lies, Ogun will not stand with you. His justice is the blade that cuts through confusion. He clears deceit the way a machete slices through overgrown bush, swiftly, cleanly, without apology. You cannot hide behind appearances with Ogun. You cannot perform righteousness. He demands sincerity, discipline, and courage. If you say you are just, you must prove it in action. If you say you seek truth, you must be willing to bleed for it. His fire is not the thunderous flame of rage. It is the slow, hot burn of purification. A cleansing fire that melts falsehood down to its rawest form. His iron tests character. Injustice cannot pass through his forge without being reshaped or broken. Corruption trembles before Ogun, not because he punishes, but because he exposes. His justice is not symbolic, it is sharp, it is real, it is earned. In the old rituals, those seeking to make sacred promises would go to Ogun's shrine, and there, under the eye of the god, they would take blood oaths. The blade was not just present, it was witness. A drop of blood on iron sealed the vow. To lie before Ogun, to swear falsely in his name, was to invite disaster, accidents, illness, madness. Because Ogun's justice never forgets, and it never misfires. He is not quick to rage, but he is impossible to deceive. He sees effort, he sees intent, he sees the roads you walk, and whether you cleared them with honesty or cut corners with dishonor. And for those who strive to do what is right, even when it is hard, Ogun clears the way. He opens paths where none existed. He gives strength to the weak and resolve to the righteous. His justice is not comfort, it is confrontation, but it is always fair. Ogun reminds us that justice is not simply what we believe, it is what we build. It is not an idea, it is a path carved in sweat, in truth, in iron. And for those willing to walk it, blade in hand, Ogun is the god who walks beside them.
The sands of time flow like a river, carrying with them the stories of our ancestors.
In Igbo cosmology, the earth is not just ground beneath the feet. It is a living being, a consciousness, a witness. And her name is Allah. She is the Earth Mother, the goddess of fertility, morality, and ancestral law. But she is more than giver of life. She is also keeper of truth. To the Igbo, everything done in secret touches her body. Every lie spoken behind closed doors, every betrayal hidden from human eyes, is known by Allah. Because nothing escapes the earth. Allah governs the moral fabric of existence. She is the guardian of what is right, not only in law, but in spirit. She enforces taboos, the unwritten codes that bind communities together, codes passed not through rulers, but through ancestors. When you violate these laws, you are not just offending culture. You are offending the very ground that carries your steps. Allah does not roar or strike with lightning. Her judgment is quieter, but far more enduring. To offend Allah is to pollute the land, literally, spiritually. A murder committed in secret does not
vanish. It seeps into the soil. A broken vow, a defiled ritual, a taboo ignored. These acts are absorbed by the earth, and they weigh heavy on it. Her punishment is not thunderous. It is patient, measured. It may come as a harvest that fails, a womb that will not open, a sickness that lingers without cause. Through fertility or famine, Allah speaks. She is the one who remembers. Where human memory falters, hers does not. A crime, buried in silence, will still bloom under her watch. A forgotten injustice will still return to demand reckoning. The land itself carries memory. Trees grow from places of truth. Crops wither where corruption hides. Her body holds testimony more accurate than any court. Her silence is not absence. It is attention. And so, to deal with Allah is to move carefully, respectfully, with reverence for the sacred order. No burial may be done without her approval. To bury the dead without the proper rites is to risk contamination, not only of the land, but of the community's spiritual health. Families seek cleansing from her shrine, offering sacrifices and prayers to restore balance. Land disputes are not just legal, they are spiritual, because land is her flesh, and misuse is personal. Allah is not cruel, she is maternal, but she is exacting. She does not demand perfection, she demands integrity. You may fall, you may err, but if you return with sincerity, with humility, she will receive you. The soil does not reject those who restore what they have broken. But for those who continue to defile her laws with arrogance or deceit, her patience turns to resistance, and the land will respond. She is the quiet presence beneath all things, beneath footsteps, beneath homes, beneath memory. Her justice is not loud, but it is inescapable. It flows through rivers, through crops, through wombs. Through her, the Igbo learned that justice is not only a matter of law, it is a matter of land. It is rooted, it grows, it dies, it returns. Allah teaches us that truth is not always shouted. Sometimes it is buried, but never forgotten. The earth remembers, and the earth will speak.
Ayelala does not need fire to make her judgments.
In the sacred traditions of the Ijaw and Yoruba, there exists a goddess whose power lies not in volume, but in presence. Ayelala is her name, the one whose justice does not come with thunder or flame, but with silence. She is the goddess of divine retribution and truth revelation. And where other deities make declarations, Ayelala waits. She does not shout. She does not warn. She simply watches. And when the time is right, she acts. Ayelala does not need fire to make her judgments felt. She slips in quietly, unnoticed at first, a whisper in a dream, a fever that does not pass, a shadow at the edge of the mind. Her punishments are slow, unfolding like a tightening knot, through nightmares, illness, madness, and sudden confessions. Her presence enters a life like water into cracked earth, inevitable and irreversible. Those who carry guilt feel her before they see her. They hear her silence more loudly than any accusation, and in the stillness, they begin to unravel. What makes Ayelala terrifying is not just her ability to punish, but her refusal to be avoided. Her justice cannot be escaped. There is no hiding, no deception that she cannot pierce. The guilty can flee from men, change names, even try to forget. But Ayelala is not bound by distance or time. She operates on the level of spirit, of conscience, of truth. She does not need to chase you. She is already where you're running to. Her justice is final, and it is complete. To those who suffer wrongly, Ayelala is a sacred protector, the one who speaks when the courts fall silent, the one who restores truth where lies have taken root. But for those who violate oaths, who bury truth, who betray trust, she is the slow hand of divine consequence, gentle at first, but inescapable. Her symbol is not fire or stone, but water, still, sacred, reflective. At her shrines, the sacred pot of water sits as both mirror and memory. It is believed that truth, when hidden from the world, can still be seen in that water. Those who swear before Ayelala do so knowing what it means. To lie before her is not just dishonor, it is death. Not always swift, but certain. Her justice moves at the pace of inevitability. The ritual of swearing an oath before her shrine is an act of complete surrender. It is a public contract written not on paper, but into the fabric of the soul. A person may speak words of innocence to a crowd, but Ayelala listens to the heart. And when the spoken truth does not match the inner truth, the soul begins to break down under her gaze. Some confess within days, others fall sick, some go mad, and still others find their families or surroundings crumbling as the lie poisons everything it touches. She does not destroy for pleasure. She restores balance. Her aim is not punishment for its own sake. It is exposure, revelation. Ayelala exists to bring what is hidden into light, no matter how deep it was buried. In a world where injustice is often shouted down or erased, she is a reminder that silence is not the absence of justice. Sometimes it is its most powerful form. To fear Ayelala is to know that no truth can be buried forever. To honor her is to walk with integrity, even when no one is watching. Because she is, always. And when she moves, it is not with noise, it is with certainty. Her justice is quiet, but it never leaves unfinished work.
I govern the balance between all realms.
In the sacred cosmology of the Mpungu people of Central Africa, justice does not end with life. It expands beyond it. At the center of that eternal court stands Nzambi Mpungu, the Supreme Being, the final judge of all souls. He is not just a god. He is the source, the architect of creation, the breath behind the universe. While other deities strike with thunder or cut with iron, Nzambi's justice unfolds like the sun, vast, constant, and inescapable. He governs the balance between all realms, the world of the living, the world of the dead, the domain of spirits, and the body of the earth itself. Nothing is beyond his gaze. His courtroom is not built with walls, but with time. His judgment is not delivered in rage, but in perfect stillness. He does not seek vengeance. He restores what has been broken. And he does not simply punish the guilty. He reveals them to themselves.
In the eyes of Nzambi Mpungu, justice is not a transaction, it is a return, a restoration of the order that once was. When a soul passes beyond the veil, it carries its life with it. Every intention, every deception, every truth unspoken. And Nzambi receives it not with wrath, but with full knowledge. The innocent find rest not because they begged for it, but because they earned it. The guilty are not sent into fire, but into revelation. They are made to see, to understand, to confront not what they did, but what it meant. In his judgment there is no escape, but there is also no hatred. Nzambi is not moved by emotion, he is moved by balance, and his justice is eternal. Beyond flags, beyond laws, beyond any man-made system, it is written into the spiral of existence, the great cycle of life, death, return, and rebirth. His symbol, the sun and the spiral, represents that cycle, the ever-turning path that leads each soul back to its truth. Among the Bakongo, the rituals that honor Nzambi are intimate and solemn. Ancestors are invoked, offerings are made, and confessions are spoken into sacred silence. For it is believed that nothing is truly forgotten, but everything can be acknowledged. Through confession rites, people seek not only forgiveness, but alignment. They do not speak to avoid punishment, they speak to return to balance. Because before Nzambi, only truth can stand. His justice is not fast, but it is final. It does not chase, but it always arrives. It reaches across generations, touching even the consequences left behind by ancestors. Yet he is not feared as a tyrant. He is revered as a cosmic father, firm, fair, and unflinching. He reminds us that what we do in life echoes long after we're gone. And when our names are no longer spoken, when our bones return to the dust, the truth of our lives will still rise into his light. Nzambi Mpungu is the reminder that justice is not simply about right and wrong. It is about alignment, about the soul returning to its original place. In a world full of noise, his justice is the quiet that waits at the end, not with anger, but with balance, not with punishment, but with truth. Long before the first laws were etched in stone, before judges wore robes, before the idea of a courtroom even existed, Africa had conscience, a deep, sacred knowing of what was right and what must never be done. Justice was not enforced, it was embodied, not feared, but revered. It lived in feathers, thunder, iron, earth, silence, and sun. It flowed through gods who did not merely rule from above, but walked with the people, shaped their morality, and held them accountable through nature itself. Ma'at weighed the hearts of the dead against the truth. Her scale was not for punishment, it was for revelation. Shango cracked the sky to strike deceit, reminding rulers and commoners alike that power without justice collapses. Amadioha kept the memory of every word spoken beneath the sky. His lightning struck not the unlucky, but the untrue. Ogun forged truth through labor and action, teaching that justice must be built, not spoken. Allah bore every secret in her body, and when the soil cried, it was her voice that answered. Ayelala, in her quiet vengeance, found the hidden truth and brought it to light without raising her voice. And Nzambi Mpungu, eternal and infinite, ruled beyond the grave, not with vengeance, but with restoration. In his light, the innocent found peace, and the guilty saw their reflection. These were not stories meant only to entertain. These were not forgotten myths buried by time. These gods were mirrors, showing us who we are and who we must be. They did not teach justice through fear, but through balance. They did not separate law from life. They wove it into breath, into soil, into silence. And even now, their laws still echo. In every call for truth, in every protest against injustice, in every quiet conviction that something is not right, the divine court still speaks, because truth, once spoken by the gods, can never be unspoken. So if this story moved you, if it taught you something new or reminded you of something ancient, don't let it end here. Comment your thoughts below, share this with someone who needs to remember, and subscribe for more untold truths, ancient wisdom, and powerful stories the world forgot. The gods may be silent, but we are not. Keep the truth alive. Let the divine court be heard.